Take a minute to try that. the people. Please try it.
I'm sorry?
No, no. Do we have Dr. Shula here?
Yeah, that's me.
The Shula.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We have 3 minutes until the conference resumes. So I wish the chair and speakers of the first session is all ready. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. We're having some technical difficulty, and it's going to take a couple of minutes to troubleshoot this difficulty. So please stay with us, and I really thank you for your cooperation. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the 30th Population Census Conference for its last day program. The Population Census Conference was first organized in 1971 and has continued to serve as a useful platform for advancing censuses in America, Asia, the Pacific, and beyond. This 30th Population Conference, organized as a virtual meeting, is co-hosted by the Association of National Census and Statistics Directors of America, Asia, and the Pacific, known as ANGSTAP, the National Statistics Office of Mongolia, and Statistics Korea. The conference consists of 7 sessions. From our previous 5 sessions, we've looked into important behavioral, environmental, and technological aspects in census implementation, as well as valuable experiences and lessons learned by the NSOs in the context of a crisis. Today, we have 2 sessions ahead of us, which will focus on data processing and utilization of population censuses. Before resuming sessions, we have a couple of housekeeping announcements. First, we do not have official breaks within or between sessions. However, if any session ends earlier than its planned ending time, the following sessions will resume according to the pre-arranged schedule. Please refer to the program page in our conference website for the detailed schedule of each session. The session will be composed of 2 or 3 presentations followed by Q&A, which will be moderated by a session chair. To ask questions or make comments during each session, please use the question and comments section located underneath this video in this webpage. The Secretariat will monitor the webpage throughout a session and will deliver your questions and comments to each session chair, who is delegated to address selected questions and remarks. Without further ado, we'd like to invite you to Session 6, Data Analysis and Utilization. This session will continue for an hour and a half and will be chaired by Professor Haekyung Lee from Baeje University in Korea. Professor Lee is specialized in migration, transnational communities, gender, and work-related research, who has been actively engaged in advisory committees for various government departments in Korea, including Statistics Korea and the Ministry of Employment and Labor. She was the president of the Population Association of Korea from 2016 to 2018. Professor Lee, you have the floor until 12 noon in Korean time.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, all participants. Welcome to the 6th session of 30th Population Census Conference. My name is Haekyung Lee, a sociologist and a professor at Baeje University, Korea. It's my pleasure to moderate this session. Today is the last day of a 3-day conference. During the first day of our conference, we heard about data collection and 2020 round census in the era of COVID-19. Yesterday, or during the second day, we heard about technologies on census taking experience of 2020 round of censuses, and census data dissemination. Today, we have 3 sessions, including closing session. Our session, session 6, is the first section of today's conference where we will talk about data analysis and utilization. There are 3 presentations in this section. For each presentation, a speaker will have 25 minutes for. After all the presentations, we will have the Q&A session. So for the Q&A session, I encourage you to send in your questions using the chat window below. Let me introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is Dr. Jula Chakar, a research scientist at IPUMS Center for Data Integration, University of Minnesota, USA, for near 15 years after she got her PhD in geography from University of Minnesota in 2006, and she had her MA and BA in geography from India. Dr. Shula, you may begin your presentation. The floor is yours.
Greetings from Minneapolis, United States. Good evening, good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you are located. I am a research scientist at the University of Minnesota, and I have been working for IPUMS for quite some time now. I am by training a geographer, as Dr. Lee said, and I work with geospatial information in the project. In this presentation, I'll talk about how IPUMS, or IPUMS, adds value to census microdata and how it promotes research. Today's presentation has 2 distinct parts. In the first part, I'll talk about what is IPUMS data and how IPUMS enhances the census data that most of the census NSOs collect. In the second part, I'll talk about some examples of policy changes and research with the census data distributed through the IPUMS portal. The mission of IPUMS is collecting census microdata, documenting the data, harmonizing and disseminating the data to credible researchers free of charge. I'll repeat this again, free of charge. For most countries, there is an immense preparation leading up to the census and then publishing the census. IPUMS begins where the national statistical offices leave. That is, we take your published records and make it available to the users. So we are archiving and distributing older and newer censuses for a time series analysis. Our work would not have been possible without the NSOs. So thank you to all the national statistical offices who have entrusted your data to us. We are stewards of your data and aid in data-driven research. And also thanks to all the countries who have made commitments to microdata. In this presentation, we heard from some of you from Mongolia, Vietnam, and Mexico. IPUMS is microdata, so it is person-level data organized into household. Most of the data are 10% high-density samples with a full range of census characters. Microdata are very powerful. They enable disaggregating to a lower level of geography to study small population groups, and they help us calculate several indicators and perform a complex set of analysis and model. IPUMS presently disseminates data on 102 countries with 473 censuses and surveys and over 1 billion person records. 2 weeks ago, we released data on 19 census samples, including data from new countries like Finland, Suriname, Mauritius, and of course, Myanmar. So thank you to Myanmar for entrusting your data to us. Other samples listed here, Bolivia, Cuba, Finland, Guinea, Ireland, Israel, Senegal, South Africa, Uganda extend pre-existing series for those countries. Input files from the partnering NSOs come in all formats, and here are some examples. All the incoming data are then standardized to an ASCII file with a fixed width format with household and person records. The codebooks that we receive from the NSOs are also standardized. Internally, we modify and standardize. All those source codes from the NSOs are also maintained in our database. IPUMS also takes the information that is there in the enumerator forms and translates it to English. Here is an example of a census enumeration form asking about the number of rooms. All the questions are from different languages and they are translated to English and distributed in HTML format that is easy for users to locate in the website. The signature activity of IPUMS is to harmonize variables across country and over time. Harmonization is a process of making data from different countries and years comparable by assigning consistent codes and labels. Let's take the example of marital status. Here are the original codes from Bangladesh 2011, Mexico 1970, and Kenya 1999. Note that each code means something different in every sample. They are completely inconsistent. Of course, we don't expect coordination across countries in their census data processing efforts. So researchers spend a lot of time trying to make data fit for use in cross-national or cross-temporal research. IPUMS relieves the researchers of this burden. So an IPUMS researcher aligns the code that have the same meaning on a row, assigns a new code and label that is applied to all census samples in IPUMS International. For example, 100 is for single. Marriage is a bit more complicated because each censuses have a different level of detail and seem to care about different aspects of marriage. Our aim is to preserve all detail collected in the original census data, so we use a composite coding system to build a uniform classification without losing any information. The first digit provides information available across all samples. The second digit provides additional information available in a broad subset of samples, distinguishes formal marriage from consensual unions, and then the third digit provides detail that is country or region specific. In this case, preserves details on types of marriages that differ widely across countries, such as polygamy. The user sees the 3-digit harmonized variable that applies to all samples in IPUMS. If there is more detail than they need, then they can access the 1-digit version of the marital status of the variable that is fully comparable. Another way IPUMS adds value to census data is by providing GIS files to users. Most census samples we receive provide some information about the geographic location of individuals and households, allowing for subnational analysis. However, it is not uncommon for the boundaries of these subnational geographic units to change from one census to the next. But for researchers who want to evaluate trends across time, it is important to have a consistent spatial footprint to work with so you can tell if the patterns you observe across time are true variations or just the result of changing boundaries. So when we harmonize variables across time, we consider these changing boundaries. Take the example of Zillas from Bangladesh. Here we use consistent boundaries to demonstrate gender disparity in primary education. Shifting gears a little bit, here is a list that shows the top institutions in each region in terms of number of registered users. Staff of the World Bank, the United Nations, the Inter-American, Asian, and African Development Banks, and the World Health Organization also use IPUMS data. There are nearly 200 IPUMS users at the World Bank and more than 100 IPUMS users across the various agencies of the UN. Of the more than 20,000 users, more than half are students. The majority of our users are graduate students who are using the data in their master's or doctoral research. Several hundred undergraduate students have also registered to use the data in their coursework. IPUMS approved educators can also create classroom accounts which simplify the registration process for students and allow instructors to share data directly with students through the IPUMS website. Most undergraduate students access IPUMS data this way. About 35% of the IPUMS users are academic faculty, researchers, or staff. 5% are non-academic researchers from policy research institutions and large NGOs like the World Bank and the UN. Here are increases in IPUMS data through time. The first graph shows the increase in users over the years. The second one shows the total number of data extracts requested over time. 2020 is low in the second plot because it only has data till November and does not include the most current data release. The first map shows IPUMS users and their 137 countries of residence. The second map shows the 163 countries that the IPUMS users originate from. So a PhD student in the US who's from India and is staying in the US is in the first map and in India in the second map. So US has a lot of users and we have taken it out of the map so that the results are not skewed. Here is another way to look at the IPUMS users via Google and Analytics. So the previous slide was what the users fill up in the registration form. This is directly from the website. All data in this slide are from January 1st, 2020 to November 30, 2020. From the map, the bulk of the users are based in the United States, followed by China. Visually, I see no one accessed IPUMS data from Chad or the Republic of Congo in 2020. IPUMS data is used from all over the world. However, we don't have data from all over the world. The point I'm trying to make is ideally at some point, we would like both these maps to match. In the next part of the presentation, I'm going to shift gears and highlight some of the ways census data harmonized by IPUMS has been used and how policy changes are being implemented on the ground. The first one is from the UN Population Division. They use population distribution by age and sex. They study mortality, migration, aging, and cohabiting unions. The data can be disaggregated at lower levels of geography and are well documented. Here is an example of their publication. At IPUMS, we are also hearing more and more about organizations that are using the census microdata distributed via IPUMS to measure the Sustainable Development Goals. UNFPA is a central organization in census taking support and in monitoring demographic trends. Their latest strategy publication has called for an increasing access to census data in the public domain and through, for instance, IPUMS and Redatum. Here is another example from IOM. IOM recently conducted a pilot survey on disaggregating SDG indicators by migration status. But the pilot uses IPUMS microdata for examining migration from 2000 and 2010 census round. The graphs are organized to show change over time between 2000 and 2000 rounds and the differences between native and foreign-born population. The authors wanted to visualize the gaps between the groups. The blue dots represent the foreign-born, the orange dots represent the native-born, lighter dots are from the 2000 census round, and the darker dots are from the 2010 census round. Dots farther to the right, higher percentage means that youth are not occupied. Shift towards the left would be considered improving. Globally, some countries seem to be improving between 2000 and 2010, but the patterns are different. Here I am only showing Asia. In Armenia, we see an improvement, but not for the native born. We also see some improvement in Cambodia and Fiji. The next example was presented at the pre-conference workshop at ISI World Statistics Congress meeting in Kuala Lumpur in 2019 by Dr. Matthew Bonnard. He presented data about health professionals, and the configuration of professionals looked quite different from one country to another, and IPMS had made it easier because of its coding system to use the data. Here are some visuals that he showed. In the India subnational map, the census allowed for subnational disaggregation and analysis showing change over time for health professional. And in the bottom Benin example, the subnational maps shows an understanding of healthcare worker distribution, mostly in the urban regions in the south for one single year. By our count, 32 SDGs call for census data in the operationalization or calculation of SDG indicators. SDG metadata explicitly mentions census in 14 indicators. Here we mention some of the indicators measured by census data. Due to the size of the census, it is possible to use this rich information for a variety of multidimensional calculations. And also, censuses can be useful in calibrating surveys or non-traditional data sources where the underlying population is unclear. Census data distributed via IPMS has been used for scholarly research as well. Here are some of the latest 2019 and 2020 publications using census microdata distributed via IPMS. The topics range from migration, urbanization, poverty and inequality, household structure, and family interrelationships. Another example of academic research is the IMAGE project conducted out of the University of Queensland in Australia. Dr. Bernard presented this research at the pre-conference workshop at ISI World Statistics Congress meeting in Kuala Lumpur in 2019. It studies the relationship between internal migration and educational attainment. They use microdata from 56 IPMS countries distributed via IPMS. Their comparative migration work is well known in the migration research community. Presenting at ANGSTAP and from my living room in the age of 2019, I couldn't resist showing some of your census data distributed by IPMS used for COVID-19 research. Albert Esteve from the Center of Demographic Studies in Barcelona analyzed how age and co-residence patterns shape COVID-19 vulnerability using data entirely from IPMS International. The paper is published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences and simulates COVID-19 outbreak in 10% of the population to investigate mortality vulnerability by country based on national age and co-residence pattern. Over the summer, researchers at IPMS calculated a series of population-based indicators from census microdata for the UNFPA's COVID-19 population vulnerability dashboard. The dashboard maps demographic characteristics contributing to COVID-19 vulnerability, which includes outbreak, spread, and mortality. The resulting dashboard went live in July and includes additional data layers from WorldPop, World Health Organization, and the Johns Hopkins Center for COVID Research. To sum up, census data provides high-density samples and are of the highest quality. Microdata also provide enormous value for research and policy development. Census data makes studies on health, workforce, migration, education, occupation so much easier. So a big thank you to all the hard work from the NSOs in census data collection and publication. Some of you are and will be conducting censuses in the middle of the pandemic. So thank you again. I would like to end with this slide where I invite you to talk with us, to partner with IPUMS, and to entrust census microdata to us. Like I said before, we are the stewards of your data. We do not own the census data and would like to see and work on evidence-based decision-making and data-driven research. My colleagues, Dr. Cleveland and Ms. Lee, are also attending the conference along with me, so you can connect with any one of us. Thank you, and I hope to see you all in person in the next ANGSTAP meeting.
Thank you so much, Dr. Schuler. We learned a lot about how important what and how IPUMS International can do for academics, policymakers, and NGOs, and etc. Thank you again. Let me introduce our, I want to move on to our second speaker. Let me invite and introduce our next speaker, Ms. Aya Ikawati. She is a head of demographic statistics, evaluation and reporting section, BPS Statistics Indonesia. She has been in the BPS Statistics Indonesia since 2011. She got her Master's of Applied Population Studies from Flinders University, Australia in 2008. We are waiting to hear your presentation. Now you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Can you hear my voice?
Yep.
Okay, I will share my presentation. Oh, sorry. Okay, can you see now?
Good.
Okay, everyone. My name is Dia Ikawati from BBS Statistics Indonesia. And today I will talk about how to measure the SDGs indicators during the COVID-19 pandemic from the Indonesia Population Census 2020, or we call it PC 2020. As we all know that on 30 January 2020, the COVID-19 has been declared as the international health emergency, and then followed on 11 March 2020 when COVID-19 has been declared as pandemic. And World Health Organization has explained that countries must take a whole government, whole of society approach to build around a comprehensive strategy to prevent infections, save lives, and minimize the impact. And what is the Indonesia response to that? On 29 February 2020, our National Disaster Management Agency has declared that status of specific disaster emergency condition to the COVID-19 has been extended up to 29 of May 2020. And what is the impact on our population census? Because we are planning to conduct the population census in 2020 among 54 other countries that also conduct the population census in 2020. So, in accordance with the mandate of law number 16 year 1997 concerning statistics, the BPS Statistics Indonesia is obliged to hold the population census at least once in 10 years. Additionally, the implementation of the population census was also recommended by the UN through the Principle and Recommendation for Population and Housing Censuses. So the 2020 of Indonesia population census is the 7th population census has been held in Indonesia. For the past 6 decades since Indonesia independence, Indonesia has been conducting population census in traditional way, door to door, without any prior information. However, for the population census in 2020, we are doing combined method census, which is combining the population registration data from the Ministry of Home Affairs with field enumeration in our PC 2020. This combined method, of course, requires strong synergy and also collaboration among several ministries, especially BPS Statistics Indonesia with the Ministry of Home Affairs. So the implementation of the PC 2020 using combined method will benefit all parties involved, and in the end, it can become the basis for the realization of one population data, especially in Indonesia. With one population data, we will get one standard data, one standard metadata, and also data interoperability and one data reference. Therefore, in order to support the realization of one Indonesia population data, the Presidential Regulation number 39 of 2019 concerning one Indonesian data has been issued. This presidential regulation supports the implementation of PC 2020 in Indonesia using combined method. And also, this is supported by the Presidential Regulation number 62 of 2019 concerning the national strategy for the acceleration of population administration for the development of vital statistics also has been made as the legal basis of the implementation PC 2020 using the registration data from Ministry of Home Affairs. So this is actually our initial plan of the Indonesia population census in 2020. Actually, we will do two phases of enumeration. In the first phase, we do the online census, which is from 15 February up to 31 of March, and then followed by face-to-face interviewing on July. And also, we will do the second phase in 2021, which is in-depth survey to collect the demographic parameters. And then we will use three modes of data collection in here, which is computer-aided web interviewing or CAWI, and then computer-assisted personal interviewing or CAPI, and also pencil and paper interviewing or PEPI. However, the global COVID-19 pandemic is affecting the implementation of our PC 2020. In response to handling the COVID-19, the Indonesian government decided to implement budget efficiency up to 74% of the total budget. Additionally, the government also restricted the activities outside the home and also face-to-face interaction and recommend physical distancing. This condition also has an impact in our PC 2020 that make BPS Statistics Indonesia need to adjust the PC 2020 governance in terms of the schedule as well as the form or methods of activities in each of the stages. This is the adjustment that we made in the PC 2020 responding to the COVID-19 outbreak. The first one is BPS extend the online population census in here before it will be ended at 31st of March. It has been extended to 29th of May. And then the adjustment of the mode of learning, where in the previous design we use face-to-face training, but because the very limited of budget, we use the distant learning, both in e-learning and also independent learning. For the independent learning, BPS collaborate with the national television and also national radio station to deliver the material to our census takers. And the third adjustment is in the field enumeration has been postponed from July to September because we still don't know when will the COVID-19 pandemic will be end. And also the mode of data collection Previously, we have 3, and right now we just use 2. We still use the KEWI in the online census, and for the enumeration on September, we use drop-off and pick-up questionnaire to protect the COVID-19 outbreak. So we should do the physical distancing. And in here, related to the adjustment of the business process, we also adjust the area of enumeration in Indonesia. So the enumeration area in Indonesia has been divided into 3 zones. The zone 1 consists of 227 districts. We do population register, verification, and drop-off and pick-up questionnaire. The census field workers give a questionnaire to the residents' home and then give them time to fill the questionnaire by themselves and then pick up after the period of time. And in the zone 2, in zone 2, which consists of 246 districts, we only do population register verification because we have not yet printed the PEPI questionnaire, the paper-based questionnaire. So we just verified the population register. Our census taker door-to-door verified it with the SLS committee without any detailed interview about other individual and housing characteristics. And in the third zone, which is in Papua and West Papua, since the quality of population registration data is relatively poor, we do population verification, population register verification, and also face-to-face enumeration, door-to-door. So if I can sum up, our strategies are, we change the schedule, extend up the online census, and also shift field activities from July to September. And also we design the questionnaire. Before, the questionnaire is designed as for the interviewing, and right now we design it for the self-filling. So we put some concept and definition and also in the questionnaire. And also we do the simplification of business process. No face-to-face interview, self-enumeration. We do self-enumeration, drop-off and pick-up questionnaire. And also we simplified the field operation, recruiting less census takers, and also adjustment in the learning modes, and implementation of strict health protocols. So our census takers should wear masks and use hand sanitizer, do the social distancing to prevent the COVID-19 outbreak. So, what is the impact on the output with that adjustment? The impact is for all zones, zone 1, 2, and 3, we will get output only from the population register, which are Indonesian population by sex, and then residential status, and ownership of person ID. Whereas output from the short form questionnaire, which is only collected from zone 1 and 3, we will get information about housing characteristics and also other individual characteristics. Total 22 questions in the short form questionnaire. So, with that adjustment, can we still provide the SDGs indicators? In this, we can see this is our questionnaire, consists of several questions. We collect housing characteristics, but there is some note in here. Variables in red is not available at zone 2. We need to remember about that. And only limited at zone 1 because we do the drop-off and pick up the questionnaires. So at zone 1 and 3, we will get housing characteristic, which consists of ownership status of the current house, electricity, main source of drinking water, toilet facilities ownership, major floor surface, and also for the individual characteristics, this is for all age, consists of 13 variables, name, ID number, address, length of stay at current address, sex, place of birth, birth certificate ownership, citizenship, ethnicity, religion, educational attainment, relationship with the head of the family, and marital status. And we also add some more information for the individual age 5 years and above, which are ability of speaking Indonesian, whether they are having occupation or not, and then what are the industry of them who are working, and also the occupational status. So to sum up, from the zone 1 and 3, we can generate SDGs indicators from our short form questionnaire, which is collected in 2020. We can support the monitoring for goal 1, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 16. And for the detail in here, we can support the provision of the SDGs indicators target 1 for 1, from the question about electricity, main source of drinking water, and toilet facilities ownership. And then we can support the provision of the target 431 from the question about school attendance and age, but this one only the proxy indicators, because there is no information about the training in the previous 12 months. So the information which is in black color, we can produce the indicators, but in the red colors, it only the proxy indicators. So from the school attendance, we can support also the target 451, parity index for all education indicators, main source of drinking water for the target 611, and also sanitation target 621, type of lighting target 711. And from the occupation, we can support the target 831, proportion of informal employment in non-agricultural employment by sex. And this one also proxy, school attendance and labor force status, which is a proportion of youth in an EET, not in education, employment, or training. From the question about occupation, age, and sex, it can support the target 871, proportion of a number of children age 5 up to 17 years engaged in child labor. And then from question about labor force status and industry, it can support target 922, manufacturing employment. And from the birth certificate ownership, it can support the target 1691, proportion of children under 5 years of age whose birth have been registered. So what about our next year? We still have next year population census, but only using sample, 5% sample of the total family in Indonesia. The questionnaire, we call it the long form questionnaire, or PC 2020 C2, consists of 99 questions, consists of a question about individual, migration, education, health, employment, housing, fertility, mortality, and also disability. So we can produce the demographic parameters more complex, more comprehensive from this census in 2021. And it can support this one, in which is the indicators in black color. I already mentioned that we also can get it from our short form questionnaire, but we also can get it from our long form questionnaire. And for the blue color, this one that only can produce from the long form questionnaire. We can get the information about the maternal mortality ratio, but we need to remember that maternal mortality ratio is a very rare cases. So with that number of sample, maybe we cannot produce it up the lowest level. But we still want to try our best to produce that maternal mortality ratio. We also can produce the under 5 mortality ratio, neonatal mortality ratio, rate, and also death rate to do the road traffic injuries, because we also collect information about cause of death. We can also produce the information about adolescent birth rate, because we collect information from for the women from age 10 and above, and also mortality rate attributed to unintentional poisoning because from the information about cause of death, and also proportion of children under 5 years of age who are developmentally on track in health or disability. We apply the Washington Group framework in our census, so we collect some information for that about disability. And also the next one, this one already collect in the short form questionnaire as well. And the next one is the average hourly earning for female and male employees. We can get it from our long form questionnaire. And also unemployment rate, we can also get it. And then for the target 10-to-1 proportion of people living below 50% of median income, we can also get that information. And this one, how we can disaggregate the data from our PC 2020. For the white color, this one, we can disaggregate from the short form questionnaire. We can disaggregate it by age, sex, migration status, educational status, and then employment status, administrative area, and geographic location. Whereas from the long form questionnaire, there are two additional data disaggregation by disability status and by income. And for the last, the data collected in the population and housing censuses must serve a wide range of purpose and do not lend themselves to lengthy and detailed interviews, so that the amount of detail that can be provided on each individual subject is very limited, especially with the many types of data collection, such as in Indonesia. And for Indonesia, collecting more detailed information through the long-form questionnaire, sample census, surely come with consequences that some indicators maybe could not be produced up to the lowest level, especially for the rare cases, such as maternal mortality. So the SDGs can be realized only with strong global partnership and cooperation, not only in the global, but also in the regional, national, and also in the local level. International cooperation is needed now more than ever to ensure that countries have the means to not only recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, but also can achieve the SDGs. So if we can refer to the goal 17, how to strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development, which is the target in by 2020, how to enhance capacity building support to developing countries, including for least developed countries, and also small island developing states, to increase significantly the availability of high quality and also timely and reliable data disaggregated by income, gender, age, race, ethnicity, migratory status, disability, geographic location, and other characteristic relevant. So I will end it with our tagline. This is our tagline in Indonesia in our population census 2020. Mari mencatat Indonesia, which means let's count Indonesia, because it is in line with the motto of the census, because everyone counts, and also in line as well with the SDGs motto, leave no one behind. Thank you, Ms. Lee. That's all my presentation.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Ms. Daya, for your wonderful sharing your experience regarding Indonesian population census and SDG indicators. I hope to visit Indonesia. Now let's move on to our final speaker. I'd like to invite and introduce our next speaker, Dr. Rachel Snow. Dr. Rachel Snow received her PhD in population science from Harvard School of Public Health in 1988, where she was subsequently a MacArthur Fellow in Population and Development Studies, and assistant professor in population and international health. She also taught on University of Heidelberg in Germany. Thereafter, she was a tenure faculty at the University of Michigan. She was also the leading author of United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, 20-year review of the International Conference on Population and Development. Altogether, Dr. Rachel Snow has about 30 years experience conducting research on this area. Dr. Rachel Snow, we are waiting to hear your presentation. Now, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Professor Lee. I wanted to make sure you can hear me just fine.
Yeah, fine.
Okay, great. It's a pleasure to be here, and I especially appreciated the prior two speakers. And I think what's very interesting and fun today is that as we talk about the work we're doing at UNFPA, you will appreciate that we are very much leaning on IPUMS for their data. So I think the combination of the two these presentations is very nice. So what I want to start with today is the Target 1718 of the 2030 Agenda. And just to remind us all that that goal inside, this target inside this SDG was to enhance data capacity and statistical systems in developing countries by 2020. And that's a challenging reminder because we are now at the end of 2020, and I think we can all agree that there's a long way to go still to fully enhance data capacity and statistical systems in many of the low and middle income countries of the world. But this is, of course, a high priority for UNFPA. So our overall population data strategy is based on 3 pillars of work. And one of those is very much to improve data quality and scope, and particularly with a great emphasis on census. We do also some work on civil registration, but as you may know, we are in 130 countries across the world, and for the last 5 decades, UNFPA has been a primary support to governments worldwide in the operation of the census. And in this respect, it was very nice to hear from Indonesia and to hear all about your adjustments under the COVID circumstance. So congratulations on that work. But in addition to promoting population data in scope and quality, we have 2 other priorities. And one of those is to indeed share more population data, and to do so capitalizing on institutions like IPUMS, and then to, in fact, create a population data platform that will, again, democratize data a bit more and give more countries the tools, the analytic and visualization tools to meet our 3rd goal, which is, of course, to use more population data much more effectively. And it may be worth mentioning that there was an evaluation of the 2010 round of census conducted by UNFPA and external partners, which concluded that there was a great deal of work to help countries undertake the census, but there was a very serious lack of capacity strengthening to help governments actually use those data in creative and effective ways. So again, it was great to see the presentation from Indonesia, but we have many countries, of course, where we find that those the capacity is not what we just saw in Indonesia, but still very much needing strengthening. Census, of course, is essential. I don't need to tell that to you in this particular meeting, but only to remind that in many of the poorest countries, it remains really the foundational data source. And why? Because civil registration remains extremely thin on the ground, particularly in the continent of Africa. I was interested to see the estimate by Dr. Sharker about the number of indicators that use a census, because in our estimation, that's as high as 107. So we should compare notes on that. And that's more than census. It's that requires some comprehensive population denominator. But we calculate that number is very high, as much as 107. And yet what we find, of course, as I mentioned, is so many governments do have shortfalls in modern methods of census, in particular, any sort of geospatial transformation, the capitalizing on geospatial dimensions of census. Often that's about human resources, institutional lack of capacity, and particularly we see shortfalls in this use of data. And what that, just to remind us of the COVID disruption, it was so interesting to hear about Indonesia and your adjustments. This we track on a very routine basis, on quarterly basis, what is the status of the 2020 census round in countries, largely to keep on track with those who are asking for support from us. And we do that also to serve our colleagues at the World Bank and colleagues at the US Census Bureau. We compare notes, we work directly with countries. So in that kind of dashboard, what we saw, of course, very, very profoundly was the extent of the disruptions due to COVID. Now, 59 countries in the world were expected to conduct a census in 2020 and another 68 in 2021. So of course, these are the absolute peak 2 years of the 2020 census round. Of these countries, 63 have confirmed postponements, and many remain uncertain and indeed are making adjustments and trying to figure out alternate ways, short forms, as you suggested, these sort of remote data collection methods. So adjustments are being made worldwide. Now, a priority for us when we talk about modernizing the census is absolutely to increase the use of GIS in census. And this goes from everything from using satellite imagery and doing much more sophisticated work for the digital or cartographic step in the census, but also to use GIS in census operations itself to actually help enumerators in the field make sure they're in the right locations, for people at headquarters to look indeed in the same country, for supervisors to make sure and see in fairly quick time whether the enumerator indeed is in the right, has crossed a boundary, is in the right location. But then, of course, it's really to undertake spatial analysis, to capitalize on those geotagged census data, and in fact, even to enable dissemination. So this requires an adoption of a lot more mixed methods. It means that there is indeed a call for much more enabling legal environments, but also protective legal environments. So we're finding a lot of countries still do not have legislation to sort of regulate how geotagged data can in fact be shared or not shared. And this is an interesting and important area, I think, for all of us to attend to, because the building up of that legislation is extremely important to protect, to both maximize the use of data while protecting privacy. We are also very engaged in population estimates where they are needed, and for us that's in areas of a country that in fact cannot be enumerated, be that for reasons of violence or recent climate disruptions, etc. We are undertaking very active support in simple things like the procuring of tablets and the sharing of tablets. So UNFPA serves as a broker between a number of countries where tablets which have been purchased and used in one country then are retrieved, fully cleaned, and then redelivered to another country. And this is important, of course, for essential cost savings. And some of that has gone well. We know also the African Union is now likewise serving as a broker to help promote this sharing. And we do see some really significant activity on that front. The other is that to use satellite imagery is one thing. And a lot of countries are very, anyway, put off, and understandably, by the cost of some of the highest resolution satellite imagery. So it may be possible to use publicly available imagery in more rural or suburban areas. But when it comes to actually being able to apply imagery to dense urban areas, of course, much more high resolution imagery is required. And one of the things we've found very helpful for governments is to help them negotiate lower prices through a range of other partnerships we have, including with the Gates Foundation, to secure, and the GJM within the UN, to be able to secure more affordable high-resolution imagery for countries. We do fund chief technical advisors, and we do a lot of training of a roster of our consultants. And this round of the census, a lot of that has been about this modernization of census and bringing many technical advisors on census up to speed with what's possible with geospatial methodologies. And so that's a whole series of capacity strengthening. And then again, of course, supporting the legal legislation and privacy issues that I just described a while ago. We also are very keen through our programs to encourage the integration of census within the overall population data system. And I mentioned in the title here that we try to take this whole system approach. Census, of course, is one critical dimension, but it is one critical dimension of that full population data system. And we're very pleased that with funding from the Canadian government, we have a program called the Converge program. And that's really about the quality assessment of civil registration, which of course often is based on the utilization of census as combined with civil registration to be able to assess coverage and quality. And so we're encouraging, as the census is achieved this round, to really use the census data to then do that quality assessment of the status of the civil registration. Allow me to add on this point that we see a great deal of interest in work on birth registration. And as we were just reminded, there is indeed, in fact, an SDG indicator encouraging countries in birth registration. And what we find is, however, that death registration has been a bit neglected, and the most serious neglect, and I think in the overall development community, has been to pay attention to marriage registration. So we are trying to kind of preferentially focus a bit more on death registrations and marriage registrations, where we see some of the most significant gaps, particularly in the least developed countries. We also are encouraging countries that are either humanitarian preparedness countries or humanitarian response countries to use the census, this latest round of census in particular, of course, to create common operational data sets in population statistics. And we spent in the course of this year, we've prepared 78 of those with partner governments, and those are then available to the OCHA website, so that when and if a humanitarian crisis occurs, there is very up-to-date population data by locality, by age and sex, so that the number of people affected by an event can be very rapidly assessed, and the number of, let's say, food kits and health kits, et cetera, that need to be brought into a humanitarian crisis can be much more precisely estimated, not only assuring that there's some fiscal savings in those purchases, but also to make sure that nobody lacks a health kit that they might need in a circumstance like that. We have a very exciting project called the Grid Cube, the Grid 3 project, which stands for Georeferenced Infrastructure and Demographic Data for Development. And this is a project that we undertake with the University of Southampton, ROPOP, Columbia University, and the Gates Foundation, and the UK government. And this has to date focused principally on African countries, but it has been really critical for increasing both the capacity strengthening available, some of that satellite imagery purchasing, and making sure that if countries indeed lack census data, we can provide assistance with some of the model-based population estimates. This is an example of grid work, in fact. So this is from Nigeria, but it's an example of using a combination of micro-censuses on the ground in Nigeria, plus a whole series of satellite imagery work, so locating settlements through the imagery, and then from this developing a model for population estimates. And this has been created for the entire country of Nigeria. Nigeria had a last census in the 2010 round, but the last has been delayed in the last few years. So now this provides not a substitute for census. It doesn't have anything near the volume or the quality and range of indicators, but it does provide estimates of the population by location. And that alone, as we know, can be enormously helpful for countries. So this is an example of some of the grid work that's underway in Africa. And another phenomena here is we can use the census data to visualize census data using 3D maps. This is some work that's been done very recently in Malawi. And you can see that there's, in fact, in 3 dimensions, you get a whole range of different sort of views of a particular country. And this indeed, on the left-hand side, you can see the population density or the people per square kilometer. And the density is you can see Lilongwe and Blantyre and Zomba. And what we find is that when working with ministers and a lot of sort of senior decision makers, visualization is enormously helpful. You know, tabular data, a lot of the data that we live and breathe and are very comfortable with, of course, has a language of its own. And what we find increasingly is that the visualization of data is enormously important for engaging sector ministers who may themselves not be, for example, particularly strong data people. But let me focus now, I think, of the theme for this session, which is really on improving the use of data for impact, and give you a few examples that we've been working with. This is an example from Zambia. And in the middle of this on the red map, what you see is the percentage of child marriage. Okay, so this is in itself indeed an SDG indicator. So what you see is the percentage of women who are 18 to 24 who were married or in union before age 18. And that gives you a very nice display, of course, of this percentage of women who experienced a child marriage. But the power, of course, of census is that when we overlay these percentages with the actual population density across the districts of Zambia, the picture changes. So if the government is really keen to prioritize in which districts should we be working in order to prevent child marriage, where are the largest number of girls at risk of child marriage, that is in the lower right column. This is the combination of the SDG display with population denominators. And suddenly we see that actually it's different districts that the government might want to prioritize. Okay, so I think this is an example of where the power of census is really crucial. Another example here, and this is from Indonesia, was some population density that was done in medium and mid-high flood and landslide zones in a portion, in a part of Indonesia. And you see again, you know, the distribution. This is again integrating census data to think about climate change adaptation and where indeed individuals may be at greater risk in any given location, let's say along the seaways in terms of flooding, but in this case also for landslides. And we find, of course, with more and more governments attentive to the risks of climate change and now absolutely experiencing a greater climate events, the demand and interest in using census to be able to anticipate and say, well, where are all the older people, for example, living alone in a flood zone? Type of question that we are challenged to answer is very, very important and impressive in terms of preparing and anticipating who might be in a circumstance where they would be indeed with. There seems to be someone else on the line from my side. Professor Lee, I have another sound of someone speaking when on my side.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, okay. I don't know if we can mute that. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this is something we've done most recently, again with the government of Malawi, remembering that UNFPA, in addition to being a population data agency, is very much an agency focused on sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights. And this is hugely important for us to be able to start using the census data and to assess who has access to sexual and reproductive health services and who does not. So this is using the last census from Malawi. And first, on the far left, you see just a distribution of the population across the country. And then we were able to capitalize on the recent SPA survey, which is a survey, comprehensive survey of all health facilities, to actually map the sexual and reproductive health service locations. So you begin to see how well the distribution matches the population distribution. In the next one, you can see some, the green dots are high coverage, where the population is within, that's living within 5 kilometers of a service, for example. You see lots of red. And then on the far right, when everything is combined, you see the number of people who are located more than 20 kilometers from a, in this case, it's a health service that not only provides antenatal care, but to use a measure of quality, we could take out of those data from the health sector. In fact, they have something very basic like syphilis screening, you know, a service that should be universally available for anyone in antenatal care. And this was important because when we first initially mapped who has access to antenatal care, the map had a lot less red on it. It didn't look too bad. But then when you add the question, who has access to an antenatal service that includes syphilis screening, in fact, what you saw was many red districts start to emerge across the country, pointing out that still access to a high quality antenatal service remains still a problem for many women in the country. So this is the kind of detailed work that Census allows when we're capitalizing on that geospatial data and then combining it with other geocoded data, in this case, like Malawi, the health sector data. And this has been extremely useful, not only for our country office there, but also the Ministry of Health, of course, in the government. Now, when it comes to sharing data, we've been building something called the Population Data Platform, and I think the central image here is the most important, and that's the layers. So as I've been talking about the layer of census data, if it's lacking the estimated population numbers, then other spatial data like the location of hospitals, roads, anything that's going to give us information about access. And then if we have them also, you know, demographic dividend indicators, SDG indicators, any humanitarian indicators that may be required. And this layering of data has really been made possible in part because of the partnership that we have with IPUMS. And so we've been capitalizing, we have a new partnership with them to use the IPUMS data as part of that population base layer. We also have relationships with countries we've worked with for a long time, and be reassured, Dr. Sarkar, we are consistently advocating, please share your census data with IPUMS. They'll harmonize it, and then it can go into our platform. So this is a really important set of relationships, I think, that for all of us, and indeed ideally for the country, because now we're talking to national statistical offices and seeing the potential to help them build national portals, which include these sorts of layered data. Our main partner in terms of the geospatial work is Esri, the global leader in geospatial data. That's been really crucial too as a critical partnership. And I think I'm showing you a map which you actually saw in the IPUMS presentation, and that is our COVID-19 population vulnerability dashboard, which was the first iteration out of this growing population data platform. And indeed, this was something important immediately when COVID hit. We started working on this with Esri. It has indeed IPUMS data inside it. It also has population estimates, the World Pop estimates, again, for countries that didn't have available census data. It has the Johns Hopkins data, as I think Dr. Sarkar already mentioned. And it includes some readiness data from the health sector, from the WHO, from the World Bank. So again, how many countries, what is the density of ICUs, what is the density of hospital beds and health workers in countries. So you can start to see even subnationally where, say, the distribution of older persons who are at risk, where they do not have, for example, piped water or live in dense slums. And yet again, also, there's very limited health worker density. So you can start to see hotspots in countries. And in some of those, we can see now that we've had these data, you can start to see how that has tracked along with outcomes and some very substantial risk. What this doesn't offer you is what the mitigation exercises were and the policies that were put in place by governments, which is, of course, a hugely important factor in the ultimate risk of people. But this has been very, very helpful. This is just, again, another example. This was monitoring the impact of COVID on census. I showed you a summary slide. We have a dashboard. This has now gone public where you can actually track censuses and the schedule of censuses. And here what you can see, it's on some special pages, is the impact of COVID in terms of postponements, adjustments, et cetera. So it was a COVID impact on census. Our capacity strengthening activities are wide, they're deep, there's many of them, but for like many of us, what has COVID done for that is it's moved us online in a huge way. So what we've undertaken is very little to no workshops in 2020. But we've made a big investment with the UN University to turn a lot of our workshops into e-learning courses on census, on CRBS. And because of the work we're doing with GIS, we now have a community of practice on GIS to train all of our staff who are in these country offices to be able to accommodate and use the geospatial data much more effectively. We do think that a lot more is needed in terms of capacity strengthening, and this is a slide actually from our own thematic fund presentation. I'll be very candid, which we give to donors as we're trying to raise additional resources because we think that this is such a crucial area. We have many Global North partnerships. We have some in the Global South, but we see a much greater need to strengthen institutions in the Global South to bring on the next generation of census experts who are trained in geospatial work, who know how to transform those data into demographic intelligence for the government, and of course to calculate geo-referenced SDGs and locate who's left behind. So we are putting as a very high priority on our fundraising resources for population data fellows. We have some of them deployed into the field to try and strengthen capacity, but we see a really significant need and a lot more room for all of us to be really preparing that next generation of young population census experts in the world. I know that we partner with COSTAT on the Summer Institute in population, so the population summer seminars, which have been running for several years. I know that the East-West Center initially started those, then they've moved to COSTAT and they've hosted them, and we were really honored to join and partner with COSTAT in the last few years in the summer seminar. And I think it's another vehicle still for enhancing and training and preparing the next generation. We have challenges. We see indeed that some censuses are not happening, and they've been postponed rather significantly because governments have had to redeploy resources significantly, not only to the health sector, but of course to provide really critical social protection relief because of the massive economic effects of COVID. And that's, of course, enormously important and crucially understandable. But because of that, we are trying to be very candid to the donors that censuses are at risk. They're crucial for all the reasons we've all been talking about, but they are at risk. And we see countries that were able to fully fund their census in the 2010 round who are really in serious need of resources to make that a reality in this 2020 round. We also do see, again, more resources needed to strengthen that national capacity, particularly in the geospatial area, which in the end ultimately will make all of these data much more targeted and useful, but that is going to require some investment. And then I think the last challenge I opened with earlier is just this balance of access versus privacy. And UNFPA hosted an expert group meeting in October on data access and privacy, particularly for population data. And it was really fascinating. What we saw there were quite a number of governments that are indeed creating really impressive and innovative types of legislation to adjust and adapt to this. But a lot more sharing between governments would be productive and useful. So I'm going to stop there and turn that back to you, Professor Lee, with thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rachel Snow. We learned a lot about why and how UNFPA tried to support to strengthen geospatial population data throughout the world. Thank you. It is very impressive to hear about a population data platform. Now, I want to move on to our Q&A session. There are some questions. Let's see. There are what questions? Okay. The first question for Dr. Shula Shaker. Are there standard? Oh, it is keep moving. Just wait. I have a questions box, but it keep moving, so I cannot read it very well. Anyway, there are one question to speaker 2. So it means that our Miss speaker 2, Miss Daya Ikawati, what is the data source for disability status and income? Is there any difficulty to obtain those data? So how about this way? I will put all the questions right away, then you answer later. And there are questions to speaker 3. What is the process to obtain census support from UNFPA? Are there any criteria required to get the support? Another question to Dr. Snow. Can you share your view or expectation on future census? Will field survey completely eliminated and online survey will be the new normal? So we have 3 questions. One question to our second speaker. Please answer first.
Is it me, Miss Lee?
Yeah.
Okay.
Daya.
Okay, thank you. So the question is, what is the data source for disability status and income? Is there any difficulties to obtain those data? So can I share our questionnaire? Can you see this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So the answer is we collect the information about disability status in our long form questionnaire that we will do it in the next year. So we put some of the question from the Washington Group framework, such as, and also combined with the National Strategies Program. So the question is consists of whether they have, whether they have difficulty in, sorry if the questionnaire is in Bahasa because we still don't have it in English version. So the question is starting in 415. So whether they have difficulties in communicating, and then whether they have difficulties in walking, using their hands, and they're concentrating or remember, and then whether they have difficulties in learning, and maybe they have some Down syndrome, and also whether they have difficulties in their emotional difficulties, and something like that. Yeah, we use it from Washington Group framework, so we applied it in our census. Actually, we already applied it in the last census in 2010 Indonesian population census, and also in our intercensal population survey in 2015. We already applied it since the last census, so we have done it for the 2 period before this census. And the next one is for the question about the income. We also collect it in this questionnaire, how much your income in terms of money and goods. Yes, we know that it's very difficult to collect information about money because people tend to lower than income. Yeah, because it's very private. We also collected this information from our National Labor Force survey, and also we collected from our survey as well, that household-based survey from the National Labor Force survey and from the population census. But also we have another data source, which is industry or from the establishment survey. We have also wages survey and also income survey. And yes, it's very difficult, but in the training we train our census takers to do the probing, to do how to do the probing, maybe asking how many jobs do you have, and then because in here we collect information about the total income that the respondents get in a month. So maybe you can ask question, how many jobs do you have, and for each job how much do you earn from that. Yeah, we do some kind like that probing to get that information. I think that's my answer, Miss Lee.
Yeah. Thank you so much. There are two questions for Dr. Rachel Snow. Can you answer?
Yes, I'd be glad to. The first question was about how to access support from UNFPA. And the first is if you have 130 countries have a UNFPA office in the country. So the most direct and immediate way to pursue some for advice and question is to contact the UNFPA office in the country, in your country itself. Now, if you're in a country that does not have a UNFPA office, it probably means you're in a wealthier country. So a higher income country. It doesn't mean that UNFPA is not able to engage and share and communicate, but then it would be intelligent to probably reach your closest regional UNFPA office. We have 6 in the world, and we have liaison offices in Brussels and Tokyo, in Korea, and a number of high-income countries, and those would be your next port of call. And if you go to the UNFPA website and you ask, where are we located, you would find the closest location for you. So that's the most important thing. And I think there was a second question, which is on the direction of future census. And I suspect that everybody on this panel would have a different answer, or maybe we would have a similar. So I would love to hear from Dr. Sarkar and others on this. But certainly we see more and more countries interested in capitalizing on their registry data. And people need real-time data. They're very attracted to the idea of being able to capitalize on that consolidated registry data, and therefore to have sort of quarterly updates routinely on critical information. So we get a lot more requests for that. A country like Ecuador, interesting, this census round, they're doing both. They're doing a census by registry, and of course by routine enumeration, and in order to figure out how much more is going to be needed from the registry data. At the same time, there are certainly countries in the world where having a common identifying indicator, which then allows you to pool data and allows the government to have data about every aspect of your life. There are some cultures that are quite hesitant about that. And we keep reminding, well, on the other hand, probably Facebook knows everything about you at this point anyway. But from a perspective of having the government, that does require that the constituents of a country have a lot of confidence in trust in the government, to have that kind of individual identifier that would pool all the information. But we also see, I think we've just seen it from Indonesia, such an interesting combination of, let's call them hybrid censuses. Let's do the best we can to get a little information by as many people through the internet. And then, okay, well, let's do a short form to a certain number. And then we'll take only a select sample of people that will ask to give us a long form, and we'll either do that, in person or maybe on the phone. And then we'll use some estimation techniques, some extrapolation methods, and we'll able to kind of, use the deep data we had on the long form from a subset, and we'll be able to generalize a bit more. Iran did an amazing census, their last census, where, we said they were gonna use the internet. And I said, but the internet penetration isn't even that high, but how creative they were. I mean, they put those internet setups into schools and made an offer that people could learn how to use the internet, and they'd get internet, access for some period of time if they came and did the census. And they had an extraordinary portion of people who came and took it online. So I think we're moving certainly progressively towards these hybrid combinations of data gathering. But again, I think the others who are here on the panel will have interesting suggestions, and they may have different projections about the future. Over.
Thank you so much. Already our time is past, but we have two more questions for our first speaker, Dr. Shula Shakar. So the question is, are there standard rules for keeping confidential census information, for example, address, age, and date of birth, etc.? And the other question is, what are the most important and necessary thing to do or what not to do? Can you answer within 1 minute?
I'll try my best. Thank you. So, with respect to data confidentiality, being a geographer, that is one of the big jobs that I do. Like, we don't release any information on units which are less than 20,000 people. So that's geographical confidentiality. Plus, if you think about it, census data, what we get are 10% samples. So and we do not get names, addresses, or anything like that. So it is confidential information. Finally, we do swap a small percentage of the households to introduce a little bit of noise, enough that it will not distort the analysis. And also for other units like occupation, we put things in a catch-all unit where like other manufacturing, other healthcare professionals. So smaller occupation groups which are not very prominent are suppressed this way. The other thing we do is top code and bottom code. So the population, some of the variables. So that way, confidential information is suppressed. I think that answers most of the confidentiality part and the second question. I do want to spend like maybe 20 seconds on what Dr. Snow said about the census and moving on from now. We do want to see a census because census is the whole population, and think about if we want to do very small population groups, vulnerable population groups, taking a census is the way to go. And moving on to samples, we would not be addressing people who are, like very low population groups or things like that. Also, thank you, Dr. Snow, for advocating for IPUMS. And then we'll be in touch with you to find out the remainder of the SDG indicators.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much. Due to a time limit, we would like to wrap up our session. Thank you very much for your active participation. Thank you all. 감사합니다 in Korean. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you all, and special thanks for Professor Lee, Dr. Sarkar, Ms. Ikawati, and Dr. Snow for their valuable contribution. Before proceeding to our next session, allow us a couple of minutes to check in with our next speakers. We'll be right back as soon as we are ready. Thank you very much. Welcome back, everyone. We'd like to invite you to Session 7, titled Data Processing. The chair of Session 7 is Mr. Amarbal Abiermed, Director of Social and Population Statistics Department from NSO Mongolia. Mr. Abiermed has rich experience in population census operation as well as social and demographic statistics productions. He serves as the Vice President of UNGSTOP from 2016 through 2018. This session will continue for an hour until 12 noon in Ulaanbaatar City Time. With that, I'd like to invite Mr. Abiermed to begin Session 7.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Good afternoon also. Good evening. And also the warm census family and participants. You know, I'm Amar Bal. I'm a director of the Population and Social Statistics Department, National Statistics Office of Mongolia. It's a very good day for me. My census history, I'm very happy to moderate it. Now I move to introduce my first speaker, Mr. Mohan Singh Thapa. He is a technical director, office of the Registrar General, Census Commissioner of the India. Mohan Singh Thapa worked as a technical director, heading the information technology, electronic data processing division, the office of the Registrar General, India. He having experience working in various department government of the India, always survived in the capacity of the data processing and advisor. Also contributed census data processing of the Papua New Guinea and during the 2013 and 14 as an UNFPA data processing advisor. Also processed India census data in 1991, 2001, 2011. Currently developed in the web portal, mobile app, digital data in collection during the census 2021. He has more experience. Now, Mr. Thapa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to share my presentation screen, sir.
Sure.
Okay, sir.
Sure.
Sir, are you able to see it, sir? Sir, my screen is visible? Sir? Sir, my screen is visible to you?
Okay, just a moment. I want to share. What's happening? Share screen. Where is this?
Sir, is it visible?
I don't think so.
Sir, is it, sir, my screen visible to all of you?
No.
No.
It's not visible?
Yes.
Not yet.
Share.
I will once again, I will.
Share, yeah. No, just a moment. Share. What's that?
Somebody has to have you de-share your screen, sir? If somebody is already sharing the screen.
I see your screen.
This is my
Mr. Thapa?
Share this screen. Huh? Excuse me.
Yeah, I have opened the presentation on my screen. There.
Yes. Okay, now share the screen.
Is it okay?
Yeah, your screen is. Yeah.
Now it is coming. Sir, now it is okay? Sir, are you able to see my screen? Sir, are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Sir, as my name is MS Thapa, I am Technical Director in the Office of the RGI. Now I am going to present the processing of census data in India. You all know, sir, India is a very large country, having 1.35 billion populations, and in the census processes, we use 16 languages to fill our paper schedules. In the 2011, we have deployed around 2.4 million enumerators. Enumerators is the basic unit for collection of the data for us. It is a contiguous land in which structures or people lives. So that particular structures or lands is allotted to a particular persons. That person is called enumerators. And in the absence of the permanent address system, we conduct our censuses in the two phases. So in the first phase, we make a frame. While making the frame, we take the stock of the housing and house listing census of the country. In the second phase, we do the actual population enumeration. Then for the method we deployed it, it is the house to house visit by the enumerators and then get the answers recorded on the paper schedules. And census organization has always experimented with the new innovations by way of reforming the questionnaire design as well as adopting the new technologies to process a huge data. This is our administrative hierarchy, sir. You can see accordingly we disseminate the data also. We are having in the 2011 we are having the 35 states, but now it has become 36. The districts were 640. Now the district has become 734. So it means states further divided into district. Districts are further divided into sub-district. In the 2011 it was 5,767. Now it has become more than 6,000. In the towns also it has crossed 8,000 limit. In the villages almost remains same, sir. Only just 5,000 more. Households 240 million were in the 2011, and now we are expecting that around 16 to 18% increase. The innovation block, this is the basic area allotted to a one person to collect the data from visiting each house. So we were having 2.35 million innovation block in the 2011, but this time it will be around 245 or 259 million innovation block. The population of the census 2011 it was 1.21, but this time we are expecting somewhere in between 1.35 to 1.38. So enumerators, as I have told, that actually the enumerators were 2.1 million and the 0.4 million were the supervisors. So around 2.5 million were the workforce which we have used for census operation during 2011. You can just imagine that even the number of the census functionaries may be more than the population of some of the country.
Excuse me, Kappa.
Yes, sir.
Your display is not sharing. You are just your. I saw your video. You share in your screen, please?
It is not shared?
Not yet, sir.
So it is not sharing?
Just I saw the O. What's happened? Maybe share screen.
I have done the share screen, sir. For me it is.
Your presentation.
Yes, sir. Is it visible, sir?
Yeah, now is okay. You using the slideshow, big size, please.
It is visible, sir, now?
Yes, now it's okay. Everything is fine. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Now it's okay.
So I have already told that this is our administrative hierarchy. The way we collect the data, we are having the 36 states at present. The statistics shown on the presentation is the 2011, but in the 2021 now our state has become 36, districts have become 734, sub-districts has become more than 8,000, towns are also more than 8,000, and villages is almost remain same. Even the household we are expecting this time there will be around 16 to 18% increase. Innovation block will also be increased. Our census population this time will be around 1.38 to 1.4. Actually, this is the estimate. We don't know actual. So around 2.5 million workforce has been used in the 2011 to collect the data from the field. So it is a population of very number of countries in the world. So now, sir, as I have already told you that we collect the information from the household by visiting each and every structure in the country. And the interesting thing that we have used 640 million schedules got printed in the 16 languages. We don't use only one language, we are having the 16 languages in which our schedules get printed and then get filled by the enumerators. Around 12,000 metric tons paper were used. But this time, because we are talking about the digital census, so we are going to save the trees, I can say. And most of our enumerators are the school teachers. The reason behind is that because they know the local area very well, and there will be no bias net in their character itself, because a teacher cannot be biased towards any questions. So digitizing the large volume of people's data and its processing is a challenge. And without technology, we cannot do anything. So I will just give the glimpse of our data processing since 1961. What kind of the technology we have used, and you can just see, sir, till 91, even though we are collecting the 100% data from the fields on paper schedules, but as far as digitization was concerned, very minimal. In the 61 it was 5%, then 70 and 15, then 25, then 45, but in the 2001 it has taken a giant leap by way of introducing a new technology called scanning and intelligent character recognition. So it means we have automated the process of the data capturing from the paper schedules. So this was the reasons we were able to computerize 100% data from the field. So you can just see the digitization, the time. Sometimes it looks very odd because we are taking so much time. So the data which we have collected may lost its relevance. But anyhow, because volume is so huge, so we are helpless in that sense. But we have tried in the 2001, the 6-year period has become now 4. In the 2011, you can see it has become the 1 to 2 because our census questionnaire are divided into 2 parts. One is the numeric field coded part, another is the descriptive answers, responses. In the descriptive responses, those are in the multiple languages. As I have already told, 16 languages. The non-standard responses, we have to digitize in a standard way so that it took more time. But in the 2011, it took only 2 to 6 years, whereas in the earlier years, it was almost taking 10 years, 7 to 10 years. But as I have already told you that this time, in the 2021, our numeric parts will be ended within 6 months, and the descriptive data will be codified, digitized within 1 to 2 years. It means all the results from the census will be disseminated within 2 years of census taking place. So it will be great achievements concerning our volume of the data. So I will not talk about the other things, regional tabulation offices, which has been already discontinued. A lot of saving Government of India has done by deploying the new technology. So in the 2011, as I have told, we are having the 2 phases of the census, house listing. We are having the 35 questions, and household schedules, the population information, basically, we are having the 29 questions. All the data from the house listing was numeric in nature. So it means with the help of the ICR technology, we were able to digitize all the 330 million structures within less than 1 year. So the data was disseminated for the house listing operation within 1 year. How far the household is concerned, that we have in the phases. In the first phase, we have taken only and only the numeric questions. And in the second and third phase, we have taken the computer assisted coding for the descriptive responses. So you can just see, sir, this is our house listing and housing census schedule in the 2011. More or less it will remain for the 2021 also, with changes some of the questions. And all the responses were numeric, so automatically recognized by the ICR system, and coverage and content checking was done by the using various tools. So within 1 year, we are able to disseminate the results. But in the second phase, sir, all the numeric data were processed one year. But why? But it was released only after 2 years. Reason is that because in our society, especially in India, our religion and SCS, scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, we are having a different kind of the society where scheduled caste and scheduled tribes are also counted, but the status of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe is based on the religion. So religion was a open question. We are having only the 6 religion code, but 7 onwards we have to codify it once again. So that's why we use the computer assisted coding by using the eFlow module, and it took around 6 months. So 1 year for the numeric data, 6 months for the religion and SCST descriptive data, and the remaining 6 months, because before releasing the data, we are a democratic country, sir. If you release any data, there should not be any controversy. So we have to check all the parameters whether whatever we are going to release is perfect. Perfect in the sense it is supported by the documentary proof. The documentary proof is our schedules. So whatever we are going to release, it is available on the schedules, because those schedules has been signed by the respondent, enumerator, and our supervisor also. So in the other phase, because once that data is released, then we have to do the relationship coding, language coding, because in the language portion we record the mother tongue as well as the other two languages known by the individuals, and the education attainment also. So it took, the very difficult thing is the national classification of occupation and national industrial classification. Reason is very simple, sir, because even the national classification of occupation is the easy, but the industrial classification is very difficult, because it is the descriptive response, depend on the understanding of the enumerators as well as the respondent. So you get the non-standard answer basically, but you have to standardize the answer, then codify it as per the international norms. So it took lot of time. Yeah, phase 3 for the migration, even though it was a numeric one, but it was pushed to the last phase due to some in hierarchy or due to some inbuilt decision in the organization. So, sir, how our data has taken place? Because I am not talking about the field operation. The field operation has been taken by the 2.1 million enumerators. But how the flow was, when the data schedules were filled, all the data schedules were supposed to reach the 18 data digitization centers across the country. Those 18 data digitization centers were getting the filled in schedules from the field itself. How it was coming, our Department of Post, we were utilizing the services of the Government of India's Department of Post, and they were getting the schedules from the fields and then depositing the schedules in our scanning centers, storage centers. Then we do the pre-scanning. Why the pre-scanning is required? Even though we were getting bunch by bunch, one bunch belong to one enumerators, but even though you pass any number of the instructions, but in the field it is very difficult to get implemented those instructions as you wish. We have told don't put the tag, but people will put the tag. We have told don't put that pin, they will pin that, they will put the pin. You have told don't fold the schedule, but they will fold it. So all kind of the practical things will be happen. That's why the pre-scanning is required. Once those documents are ready for scanning, it will be scanned automatically. You can see, sir, this one. And after scanning, during the scanning also, we also do the coverage checking. Coverage checking, how we do the coverage checking? What happened that, as I have already told you, the administrative hierarchy, state, district, sub-district, town, village, then the village is divided into enumeration block. So we know each enumeration block should get some paper schedules. So with the coverage checking, we keep on checking it. It is automated process. Basically, we have inventorized all these things. So in the database, all the things are there. So when we are scanning against a location, particular location, it is checking it, whether we have received or not. So once those are scanned, those scanned images go for the identification station, where the forms get identified, whether it belongs to the household or it belongs to a house listing or it belongs to some other project. Once there may be some chances, some of the forms may not get identified, so they will be get identified by the manual identification. In the manual identification, one of the senior census functionaries is sitting and he is viewing the schedules on his computers, then marking it whether it is the HL schedule or household schedule or any other project schedule. So then the recognition took place. Recognition is done by the system automatically. It recognized the papers, images, the portion of the papers. Then the verification is nothing. It is the system inbuilt quality checking. Whatever has been recognized by the system, whether it is correct or not, those are being done by the system. System do it in a process of tile. In the tile, what you get? In the tile, you get the characters, the number of images which has been digitized by the system, as what? Like that you get, I will show you that later on, sir. Then once the verification has done the correction, if there may be some error, those will be corrected by the correction operators. If there may be something, for example, there is a sex, suppose there in the sex we say that there are only 3 fields, 1 for male, 2 for female, 3 for transgender, but somebody has filled 4 in the field itself. So the verification operator cannot do anything, system cannot do anything, system will read it as a 4. But somebody sitting in the exception can take a decision. A senior officer can take a decision whether 4 should be acceptable or it should be done something else. So during that also, we also do the coverage and content checking. What is this coverage and content checking, sir? This coverage and content checking is the comparison of the data by the system automatically with the previous data, previous census data basically. So once in the 18 data centers, the data get digitized, it is being sent to the through, in the till 2011 it was through media, but now it will come directly through net. It will come to the central location. In the central location, all the editing, tabulation, coverage checking is once again done by our national data centers. So this is the basically the tools we have used for ICR enabled data processing. Very simple. In the file portal, we are getting the scanning images. From sitting your desktop or sitting in your office, you can monitor whole the activity. You can just see that who is doing form identification, how many forms has been processed, how many inverters block has been processed, how many districts has been completed, how many state has been completed, and what kind of the quality checking we are taking place, how many forms are left to be done. Everything is in this. Basically sitting on your desktop, you can monitor entire activities of all the data centers. So I will not talk too much about it. So this is the one of our picture. Each data centers at 18 locations, this is the basic flow. Scanning of the station, then it is coming to our images stored in the local network. In the local network, it is going directly to the recognition station. From the recognition station, it is going for tiling and completion operations. Then somebody is doing the completion and content checking. Then it is being finally transmitted to our national data center, Delhi. So this is the automatic recognition, because nothing is manual here. System is automatically recognizing. We have used the 3, depending on the nature of the questions, we are using different kind of the engines to recognize the particular piece of the paper. So that image is being recognized and the final result is being stored. So while recognizing it, we use log of algorithm and lot of other things. I will not talk about too much about that, sir, in this, because time is very short. But whatever the results, you can just see this is the one of the quality check process. What is happening, sir? Here we are getting the tile of the 2, then tile of the 4, tile of 5, tile of 0. What is this, sir? This tile? This means this particular 2 has been recognized from your paper schedules, irrespective of its position. So you have to just see, because all the 2s are the images, all the 4 are the images, all the 5 are the images, all the 0s are the images. But system is saying that the following images I have converted into 0s, images I have converted into 2s, inverted images I have converted into 4, images I have converted into 5. So if something is wrong, as a odd man, you can put it as error mark. I will just show you something, sir. Here you can see, just you see this one. This 7 looks like, system is saying I have recognized it as a 7, but this is not the actually 7. So next dive we are able to see, because the carpet is there, so we are saying it is something odd. So we just either correct it or mark it as an error. I will not talk about the completion, other things. Whatever has been marked as an error will be shown in the completion station, so you can correct it. You have to type only the unmarked, only the marked character, nothing else. Sir, a little bit time I will take for this computer assisted coding. In India, as I have told, we are using 16 languages. So it was very difficult to do the checking and other thing, coding. Here something is written in our Hindi language, Sargujia. So operator is seeing the image, as well as operator is also, system is throwing a directive to them. So system is saying that it looks like a Sargujia in the left hand side, 11 Sargujia. So yes, operator has to verify it, yes, it's perfect. Once operators say it is Sarguja, now what will happen that all the Sarguja will be coded. So in one go, computer assisted, this way we are taking the assistance from the computers. So it is coding our data. Same thing with the education coding, same thing we have used. For the NIC, National Industrial Classification, we have done that because there were 3 groups we have used. First, we are selecting which is the education is the field, primary is this is the image where the person is looking, what has been written, and on the basis of that, these directories are being displayed and the operator has to select the correct one. So just to do all kind of that job, we have used 37 servers, high-end servers, and 45 Kodak scanners to scan 26 crore households, and we have used 1,372 desktop clients basically. So other things I will not talk, sir. Yeah. Coverage and content checking through MIS. As I have told you that while doing the data processing, while doing the data digitization, always there are many different kind of reports were being generated by the system automatically. Only thing is that the manager has to take a decision which reports he has to see and what time. Based on the reports, it gives the alert also. We keep on sending the alerts to our manager that something is going correctly or something is going wrong or something is abnormal is happening in your data center. So they can just see their reports and accordingly they can take the corrective action in time when the data is being digitized itself. You can see the one thing that here important is the quality check reports for QC monitoring, including rejection tolerance also. What is happening in the quality checking, sir? It is possible sometimes your operator science system is giving you the correct results, but the persons checking the quality can also make the mistakes. So that kind of the checking is also done by the system itself, and our limit of tolerance was the 2%. It means if anywhere for any question in any schedule, I am talking about any schedule means one form, if the error percentage is more than 2, so that data will be rejected by the system and it will be sent requeued in the system once again, and until or unless the data comes under the 2% rejection limit, it will not be processed. It means we are ensuring that your data, our data cannot be, if there is an error cannot exceed 2%. Sometime it may be the 100% correct data or sometime it may be the 98% correct data. So our data accuracy range is 98 to 100% this way. We always keep the history of each batch dealt by the operators, and the database also we keep on for audit and trail based, sir. Just, sir, you can see how we do the comparison with the previous census data. They are different.
Excuse me,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Papa, your time. Sorry.
I will take only 2 or 3 minutes, sir, not more than that.
Okay.
Okay. 2 or 3 minutes, sir. So you can just see that, sir, with this reports, you can compare the data, whatever the data you have generated. The label, you have to decide whether you want to generate the data on EB block or the village, town, or district or sub-district. You can compare the data, so you can take the corrective action, because before disseminating the data, you can take the corrective action because these reports are being generated by the computer. Nothing is being done manually, everything by system itself. So, sir, for consolidation editing also we do at the central location. We use generally Concur module for editing. IMPS and CS Pro we have used, and some of our logical checking also we do. And for coverage and other purposes, we do object-oriented programming languages we have used, and we prepare the data. You know, sir, these kind of the errors happens everywhere data. So we do the editing and imputation. You can just see whole deck and cold deck as described in the UN book, sir. We use all these techniques to do the editing and imputation. I have shown you just one of the example. Here you can see the literacy is being imputed as per the literacy of the particular state gender wise. So this is the hot deck where material of floor is being determined by the material of wall and roof, we got in the correct, the previously processed answer basically. So sometimes there may be a difference between unedited and edited data. Due to some of the fields which you have not edited, even it can get changed due to the changes in the related field. So just one of the statistics I am sharing with you in the 2011 what happened. These are the some imputation we have done in the house listing. I will not talk about too much. This is the some imputation we have done in the household data and the CS Pro as I have told you. So this was our timeline basically how we have achieved all these things. I'm just sharing with all of you. Only interesting thing is this one, the descriptive responses, sir. For the religion, we got 68,796 responses. Very enormous, sir. These are the unclassified which we could not classify the responses. For the scheduled caste scheduled tribe, 68,824. Relationship, everything has been coded because nothing else has been allowed. Education attainment, sir, it is very interesting. 5,67,673. Descriptive response, type of responses. In the mother tongue also, 24,272 mother tongues we got. The first language, second language, mother tongue also. And NCO and migration of birthplace was not allowed. So there was some difficulty while using the ICR. Bad images, you can just see that, sir. This kind of the images we are getting, so it is difficult to recognize the data from them. Sometimes system is not able to take the, read the things properly. So that also we get. This is something with zero is not between the writing pattern of the enumerator also. Because sometimes the enumerator, because we are having the 2.1 lakh enumerators, 2.1 million enumerators, so it means we were having more than 2.1 million writing patterns. So this is the, in the 2021, we are saying that we'll do the mobile app, we'll do self-information as well as the paper schedule. So this way we will be able to push the, whatever the post-process, post-census activities will be pushed to the during census activities because we are getting the data from the field itself. In the 2021, this is our plan. So the schedules for the 2021 tentative, this is our household schedules. And thank you, sir. These are the handbooks which we have used. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tafan. Yeah, it's a long, good presentations. Yeah, now I would like to next presenter, Mr. Young Seop Jung. He's an advisor population census division in Kastat. He's a professor at Son Chung-hyung University. Also, he's received PhD from School of Computing, KAIST, Korea. He joined faculty in the Department of the Big Data Engineering at the Son Chung-hyung University, Korea. He currently research topics in natural language processing, dialogue system, and language models in using deep learning techniques. His presentation is automatic classification of the industry and occupation code for the census in Korea. Now you have the floor, Mr. John.
Can you see my slide?
I see your presentation. Yep, it's good.
Can you see my slide?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, okay. So, hello, I'm Young Seop Jung from Suncheonhyang University, South Korea. And it is my pleasure to present this remarkable work of Korea statistics about automatic classification of industry and occupation code. As a researcher in the field of artificial intelligence, I believe that this is a giant step of qualitative elevation of industry and occupation coding system. And I also hope that this is not the last step and be a starting point for a bigger change. Around the world, there have been many studies about how to define or design classification of industry and occupation. To investigate kind of trend or statistics of population, people were asked to give answer to some questions that were designed according to the classification of industry and occupation. As shown in this figure, there have been many changes of the questions in US. The left side of this figure is about industry, and the right side is a timeline of occupation questions. The current form of industry questions is achieved based on North American Industry Classification System, namely NAICS, in 1997, and the list of occupation questions is also recently achieved by making it consistent with SOC, that stands for Standard Occupational Classification. It is obvious that the questions must be related to the classification code schemes. So both the industry and occupation classification systems are aggregate versions of the NAICS and SOC. We need to make sure that the classification system reflects the economic situation well, so that we make better decisions based on the investigation results using this system. In US, Census Bureau uses a 6-digit industry code that is consistent with NAICS classification system. As you can see in the figure, each digit of the code corresponds to different level of information. For example, the 4-digit NAICS industry group 4452 is specialty food stores, where the first 2 digits represent the industry sector, and the third and fourth digits represent subsector and industry group, respectively. For more details, you can refer to the article cited in the bottom of this slide. The 6-digit occupation code is consistent with SOC classification system, and each digit conveys different level of information. The code 131082 is project management specialist, where the first 2 digits represent major occupation group, and the remaining part represents minor group, broad group, and detailed occupation. South Korea uses 5-digit classification system for both industry and occupation. The Korea Standard Industry Classification, KSIC, was established in 1963, and it only included mining and manufacturing industry. So it was extended to include other non-manufacturing industry in 1964. Since 1965, there were totally 10 revisions. The most recent revision, the 10th revision, was conducted to include additional growing industries and combine some declining industries. And it also includes some changes according to the ISIC, that stands for International Standard Industry Classification. So for example, it combines finance and insurance industry and professional, scientific, and technical service into a single one in order to be consistent with the ISIC. The KSCO, Korea Standard Classification of Occupation, was established in 1960 and was revised 7 times in total. The KSIC and KSCO would be used for tax calculation, census report, and it would be much helpful for making policy decisions. There is an open website that everyone accesses and finds some detailed information of industry and occupation codes. If we want to find the code of a given industry or occupation, then we may refer to this website and find the one by giving some keywords such as restaurant, food stores, and so forth. If we want, you can visit and look around the website through the URL in this slide. There is another option that we can use, which is a keyword-based search engine that finds the most promising codes. The search engine takes a keyword given by a user and finds the promising codes by just counting the matched ones within the definition or index word list of the codes. For example, if we give a keyword food, Then the search engine finds some codes that their definition or index words are matched with the keyword food. The keyword-based system takes a text as an input and gives a result code for the given text. So the purpose of the system is to predict a correct code for the given text. It is absolutely true that more accurate system is better, but the keyword-based system has some limitations. First, the result using only keywords does not consider semantic information, so it may give wrong answers. For the text, cabbage cultivation in Korean, 배추재배, cabbage cultivation, the keyword-based system will give the right result, for example, industry code 01121. However, if we give the text growing cabbage to the system, then it may give wrong answer because it does not understand the meaning of the word growing. If we are given enough data, then we can develop a data-driven model such as neural network models that understand the semantic meaning of the words. Moreover, the keyword-based system does not consider other attributes such as age, educational level, or gender. So it is obvious that using these attributes will help to improve the prediction accuracy. The second limitation is that the keyword-based system requires a lot of work whenever the classification scheme changes. There have been 7 to 10 revisions, and we know that there will be the next revision. Some codes will disappear, and some new codes will appear. As the new code scheme will not be consistent with the current one, we will need to develop a new keyword-based system according to the new code scheme. That is, many experts have to work on making index words or keyword lists of every code, and it is absolutely not a good idea if we have to do this repeatedly whenever the code scheme is updated. If there is an automatic system that learns from the data and predicts more accurate codes for a given person or a company, then it would help annotators and finally contribute to more accurate statistics. There were 2 recent projects related to this topic in Korea, and these 2 projects were performed by FS company. The first project was supported by National Ministry of SMEs and Startups, where SME stands for Small and Medium Enterprise. This project proposed to use a deep learning model that is a kind of an artificial neural network and proved that the data-driven model is capable of predicting the industry and occupation code for a given text. The second project was supported by National Statistics this year, and this project compared several neural networks and also tried to use BERT, B-E-R-T model, that is one of the most well-known state-of-the-art language models. Through these 2 projects, we saw the potential of the data-driven models, especially deep learning models. The models were capable of understanding semantic meanings of words, so they gave right answers even if the given text is unseen before. We also found that using additional attributes such as age, educational level, and we found that these features contributed to improve the model's performance. So we basically used a data-driven approach, so we firstly needed to prepare enough data. Please note that our purpose is to develop a model for code prediction given some input data, such as text, age, education level, and so forth. Although Korea defined 5-digit codes, we aimed at predicting 4-digit code because 4-digit code is used for population census report. The data format is shown in the center figure in this slide, where the number of attributes is 12. The data statistics is summarized in the bottom table. So we have two data sets. The data set A covers all domains of industry and occupation, whereas the data set B is about only 4 domains. These two data sets have different characteristics. So in terms of their number of domains and their number of instances. And 50,000 instances of the dataset B are reviewed and corrected by experts. For industry code prediction, we use the 5 attributes as shown in the figure. For occupation code prediction, we took the 3 attributes. Of course, we tried to combine them or utilize all available attributes. About the textual attributes, such as main business, occupation type, department, and position, we tokenized them in morpheme level or character level. Numerical attributes, such as age, are scaled between 0 and 1 using only training data. We also filtered some special characters and digits in the text. We employed 3 neural network models, CNN, RNN, and BERT-based model. The neural networks commonly have a structure of stack of layers, where higher layer is supposed to capture or grasp some higher level of patterns. The CNN stands for convolutional neural network, and it can be seen as a special type of the neural networks. The CNN is known to be relatively lighter and faster than other types of neural networks. The figure at upper right corner shows the traditional structure of the CNN. The traditional CNN has 2 main layer types, convolutional layer and pooling layer. The convolutional layer is used to capture particular local patterns within given data based on each convolutional filter. It is obvious that different patterns will be captured if we use different convolutional filters. Surprisingly, the filters are computed automatically to determine which kind of local patterns to capture during the training phase. The pooling layer is used to pick some promising values from each input. So the CNN usually has a structure of alternating these 2 layer types and followed by 1 or more fully connected layers. The RNN stands for recurrent neural network, and it is known to be effective in analyzing sequential patterns. The second figure in this slide shows a traditional structure of the RNN. The key structure of RNN is the recurrent connection that takes previous output as an input, and this structure allows the RNN to remember previously observed sequential information. We can choose which cell to use in the recurrent connection, and there are several well-known cell types. The most widely used cell type is LSTM, and LSTM stands for long short-term memory. BERT, BRT, stands for bidirectional encoder representations from transformers. It is one of the most promising language models in the world, and there are many variants of the BERT. As many recent studies reported that using BERT helped to significantly improve performance or accuracy, we tried a BERT-based model in this study. We used a pre-trained BERT for Korean, namely KoBERT, that was pre-trained with totally 25 million sentences. We used the 2 data sets for our experiment. About the industry code prediction, each data set is divided into a train and test set, and performance was measured by accuracy. With the data set A, we achieved about 71% and 73% accuracies with RNN and BERT, respectively. On the other hand, with the data set B, we've got 92% accuracy using RNN. We computed accuracies for every digit and found that our model gives almost perfect result if we consider the first 2 or 3 digits of the code. About the occupation code prediction, each data set is again divided into a train and test set, and performance was measured by accuracy. With the data set A, we achieved about 73% using BERT. On the other hand, with the data set B, we've got about 78% accuracy using RNN. We computed accuracies for every digit and found that our model gives about 81% if we consider the first 2 or 3 digits. So we have shown that the deep learning models achieved about 70 and 73% accuracies for all domains. There was a big gap of per digit accuracy between industry and occupation. For example, per digit accuracy was between 92% and 99% for industry code prediction, whereas only we've got 78 and 82% for the occupation code prediction. The biggest reason for this is that experts of industry classification revised or corrected a part of the dataset B, so we can say that the models benefit from the good quality of the dataset. We tried CNN, RNN, and BERT-based model, but we still have a lot of options to improve performance. For example, we may consider other language models and different RNN cell types. But we realized that the data quality is more important than the models. That is, if we have enough data set with satisfactory quality, then overall prediction accuracies must be greatly increased no matter what model we choose. Of course, it is also necessary to examine what model would be the best and how to effectively train that models. During the experiments, we tried several combinations of attributes and found that the most important attribute is the texture attributes. Other attributes such as gender, age, educational level were not very helpful. This might be explained that the number of codes is about 20 in both of industry and occupation. So the models might rely much on the semantic information within the text to find the exact code among the many possible codes. By experiments, we have seen the potential of deep learning models for code prediction. As future work, we are going to use more delicate performance measurements such as per digit precision, recall, and F1 scores. We will consider other language models, including GPT series and other BERT variants. We are also examining dialogue-based service. Recently, dialogue system or chatting bot attract many academic and industrial fields. Using dialogue system or chatbot will allow users to get accurate research, accurate codes in interactive way using natural language queries. As we realize that the data quality is important, we will keep collecting more data and manage the data quality. We also have a plan to develop an algorithm to automatically convert the data of old scheme to new data with the new code scheme. About the prediction model, we are going to investigate other various models. So this is the end of talk. So thank you for attention.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your detailed presentation, Mr. John. Now, no questions because very detailed presentations our two presenter. Also, again, thank you very much, Mr. Thapa and Mr. Joy again. Then thanks for advice, for watching, participating in this session. Also, it has been my pleasure to moderate this session today. Also, again, thank you. Viral say Mongolian. Thank you.
Many thanks to Mr. Avirmed, Mr. Tapa, and Dr. Chung, and thank you all for your attention and participation into session 7 and all of the other previous sessions. This leads us to the closing of our conference. Please allow us a moment to check in with our speakers, and we'll be back soon, very soon. Thank you. For closing, we have two speakers taking the time out of their busy schedule to join us. The first speaker for the closing remarks is Dr. Bhuti Tu Tui, ANGSTA President-elect and Director of Population and Labor Statistics Department from GSO, Vietnam. Please welcome her to the floor.
Her Excellency Ms. Priyan Chimay Chikasurin, the 17th President of the Association of National Census and Statistics Director of America, Asia and the Pacific, Acting Chairperson of National Statistics Office, Mongolia. His Excellency Mr. Sino Kang, Commissioner of Statistics Korea, distinguished delegates and friends. After 3 working days with the concentration and responsibility of the 30 Population Census Conference, has accomplished all expected contents, programs, and the conference is totally successful. At the conference, 18 presentations was introduced in 7 sections to share and discuss about innovation in data collection, processing, and dissemination for the 2020 rounds of census. The conference has presented initiatives applied for innovation in many countries to contribute the success of the 2020 rounds of census in the context of COVID-19 pandemic. Besides advantages, many countries has been faced difficulty for the 2020 rounds of census, in which challenges arise because of COVID-19 pandemic. In the framework of the conference, with the limited time, it is sure that many issues still need further studying and exchanging. I hope that after this conference, the ANDAPS and international organizations continue to serve as a bridge for national statistics offices, researchers, and statisticians, scientists to have a good opportunity to share experience, improve the efficiency of cooperation to develop statistics in general and population statistics in particular. My dear delegate and friends, as newly president-elected, on behalf of ANDAPS and on behalf of the General Statistics Office of Vietnam, I would like to thank you all, distinguished delegates, scientists, and statisticians who take time to participate in this conference, give speech and share experience for conducting the 2020 2020 rounds of census. I would like to thank the effective coordination of the ANDAP, NSO Mongolia, and Statistics Korea in organizing this conference. Special thanks to ANDAP Secretariat for your very well prepared and support to participants, presenters, and moderators to participate actively in the conference. I highly appreciate effort, responsibility of all members who organized the conference. Finally, before closing the 30 population census conference, I wish distinguished delegate friends have a good health, happiness, and success. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all in person at the 31 population census in 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chui, for nicely summarizing the proceedings of the conference. It was also great to hear your commitment for census development and innovation as the president-elect of UNSTOP. Next, and as our final speaker, we'd like to invite Mr. Yeonok Choi, Director General for Survey Management Bureau of Statistics.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Yeonok Choi, Director General of Survey Management Bureau of Statistics Korea. I'm very pleased to see the successful completion of the 30th Population Census Conference, jointly held by Statistics Korea and National Statistics Office of Mongolia. First of all, I would like to express my thanks to the representatives of each country and speakers for participating in this three-day conference despite their busy schedule, and officials from National Statistical Office of Mongolia and UNSTOP for making this event possible. More than 300 people from 33 countries attended this conference. I would like to thank the participants from each country for actively participating in the conference from early morning to late evening for the enhancement of population census. At first, we were concerned that there would be low participation at the conference due to the spread of COVID-19. Fortunately, participants from various countries could join by taking advantage of their virtual method. The number of participants has rather increased than the previous conference. It was very productive to share the current status and cases on population census of each country and discuss the direction for the census. The conference was composed of 7 sessions and 18 presentations under the theme of innovations in data collection, processing, and dissemination for the 2020 round of censuses. We could hear from Mongolia, US, Japan, Singapore, Mexico, and Indonesia about each country's response to COVID-19 for census and ICT-based data collection methods. These countries completed population census this year successfully, despite difficult situation with COVID-19. I think their experience will serve as very helpful reference to the countries which will conduct population census next year. Hong Kong and India, which will conduct 2021 population census, introduced the various measures in data collection, processing, and dissemination. Also, Vietnam shared its know-how on population census conducted in 2019. Many countries showed great interest in register-based census in Korea, and methodology for automatic coding of industry and occupation using AI method presented by Statistics Korea. Once again, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to the speakers for their wonderful presentation on each country's census status and practices and participation in the conference. Statistics Korea is committed to making continuous effort for the development of a population census conference. I sincerely hope that the COVID-19 pandemic will end soon so that we can meet in person in Tokyo, Japan in 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Che, for your excellent closing remarks and great summary of the conference. This concludes all the sessions and proceeds for the 30th Population Census Conference. We'd like to extend our sincere gratitude to every participant, speakers, session chairs, and panelists for taking part in the conference despite many difficulties and limitations. If any of you would like to revisit all or any part of our conference, the video recordings of our conference will be or already are available in our website. Finally, the conference materials ebook will be distributed to the registered participants via email after all final modifications are made. Please contact the secretary via email for registration and ebook support. We will see you all at the 31st Population Census Conference in person. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.